overcome me almost like some kind of anxiety attack. Just a deep, overwhelming feeling that I'll never see him again.
It's Ariaa from TLC Next Reveal. Welcome to my channel. The best news for you all is that SisterWives TLC producers did not air the video from the Nevada National Guard ceremony and memorial for Garrison Brown. Thank goodness TLC was completely at the event. There are pictures of the cameraman, Tim being there, all of that. And my sources informed me that they arrived ready to film, which created a huge issue with the family. And so apparently they didn't air the footage, which is good. I'm glad that that wasn't shown. However, the story of Kody wanting to be the grieving father, a man losing his son, totally took center stage in this episode. In fact, they did the pilgrimage that was the Wyoming trip to bury Garrison Brown. Now in this episode, Janelle said that she wanted to bury him in Wyoming and that she wasn't someone that believed in cremation and she always thought it was faith-based, but she said, I learned that that's not a faith-based, even though it kind of is. The AUB in general doesn't condone cremation and they want their people buried. And so that is a belief within the FLDS. I don't know about the LDS. I'm talking to the LDS and the AUB. But she said that she agreed to this burial to put him in a cemetery alongside her mother. So they interred an urn, clearly not a casket. Either way, this scene was absolutely disjointed, extremely disjointed. And Kody and Robyn's so-called pilgrimage to Wyoming had very little to do with Garrison at all. Actually, this episode included a few major differences. Christine and David sat down and played cards and talked about the loss. She talked about the last messages she received from him. She spoke about missing the warning signs and mentioned briefly the reality of these messages, which she had been sent by him, and what she might have done. David could speak to her in a manner which he could comprehend, because he uncovered his wife ended her life too, and talked about the procedure he had to go through, having to inform his children, feeling like a failure, because it occurred, blaming himself for it occurring, and just the whole sorrow process that accompanies a passing such as this. It was quite obvious that David was a good support for her, and it was also quite obvious that Christine was very hurt and just devastated by this loss. And she talked about his plans, how he had just been accepted into nursing school. So there was this, on the one hand, people that knew Garrison like Christine and his mom. Clearly Janelle talked so much of this, and I'll do a different video on that. But Janelle and Christine giving actual information on who Garrison was. And then Kody, similar to what my source indicated, was making all of this about him. It had nothing to do with Garrison, and it had everything to do with Kody traveling to Wyoming in an effort to present his family with the signs that he sold like 20+ years ago to retailers, neon indications that he did not do, that he only sold. So he sold a sign to a business, and so he gave his children a tour explaining them about all of the signs that he sold. I was just amazed, to be honest. The whole segment of Robyn and Kody was so weird, and it was all Kody. It had nothing to do with Garrison, and Robyn had to keep on interjecting into the talking heads to attempt to remind people that they were there for Garrison. And it was so sad while this was happening, and it was so devastating for them. And this was not a time for them to be happy, but they were there just for Garrison. And this was a trip they took each year, though. Every year they return back and see if you have to overlay and speak over and narrate what we're watching and try to tell us what we're seeing is different than what's on camera. You're lying, because what they had shown was them going around Kody while Kody described the ugly signs that he sold 25 years ago. And the fact that these businesses haven't changed their signs since then is crazy to me. And then Kody talking and talking and talking about the signs which no one cared about, obviously. Then sitting there and watching some kind of gun show type of thing, like a Wild West show. But then it began raining. So then they had to go inside the hotel, and they went to eat. They went into the saddle store that Kody made the sign at, and it was just really strange. The guy was already mic'd up, so clearly it had been pre-planned that he was gonna go inside and just talk to him. And he's creating these saddles that cost $20,000. And I'm like, you have a $20,000 saddle that you're creating, but you have this sign from 2000. Wow. And I'm not saying that you need to, such as update your signs, but neon signs don't have an expiration date, and they do last ultimately burn out. But most importantly, none of this had anything to do with Garrison. None of it. And what I found so odd was while they're on this trip, they apparently brought the urn with them in the car, and Robyn says that Garrison was a passenger in their car on the way to Wyoming, which it struck me really in stomach because I thought you wouldn't have let Garrison in your car when he was alive, and now he's in your car when he's dead, and you're crying about the fact that you're on a pilgrimage with a guy that you wouldn't even let in your house when he was alive. And a lot of what Robyn said was nothing to do with Garrison and being sad that he was gone, but a lot of what, Kody was gonna have to endure, and the grief that Kody was gonna feel, and having the, appropriate coping strategies, and grieving me grief so that it's not done inappropriately. So it's a healthy way of grieving. Almost like saying that this pilgrimage or the manner in which Kody was behaving that day wasn't healthy. I couldn't work it out because clearly Kody was making the entire day about himself, and it wasn't anything to do with Garrison, and literally nobody cared about these dumb signs. I mean, Robyn even rolled her eyes at one point. And then, even during dinner, they didn't discuss Garrison. Instead, Robyn created a conversation about how Kody's dad adored the Wild West, and he was named after Buffalo Bill, whose last name was Kody, and then his dad changed it to a K. And then they had a discussion regarding Buffalo Bill being a ladies' man, and then Kody refuted that he was a ladies' man. And then I don't know, it was just, none of it was regarding Garrison. Again, none of this was regarding Garrison. It was regarding Kody returning to Wyoming to boast about Kody. Kody going to his hometown to boast about who Kody is. But we already had this episode. Kody, do you not recall when we went back to Level years and years and years ago for the same occasion, and you had all of your wives with you, and you went public for the first time, and you remember you boated with Ken on the lake, and afterwards all of your class friends challenged you concerning being a polygamist, and that girl who you had a crush on sat right there, and Robyn was right beside the manner in which, so you've already made this pilgrimage to Wyoming, Kody. You're just reframing the story with your current children that you're with. And then the other thing that I noticed is that other siblings of Garrison talked about him. So in this episode, we hear from Addie. We heard from Savannah, and we heard from Gabriel. Okay. But even though Kody's children with Robyn were on camera, none of them said a word about Garrison. Nothing. Not one word. Not, we miss him. We're so sorry that he's gone. They said nothing. So for whatever reason, they include this strange conversation about Buffalo Bill being a ladies' man, and then Brianna shrugging her shoulders and mimicking Kody, while then sticking her tongue out and flapping it, which most people know what that means when they do that with their tongue. I thought it was so strange. I was like, what are they discussing? Why are they turning this discourse on Buffalo Bill into something sensual about Kody having wives and being a ladies' man? And also, grossly, I figured out this whole family, they're sitting around and they just discuss with Kody how awesome Kody is. And then Kody gets to discuss himself about how much of a stud he is, which further demonstrates that Kody receives his validation and self-worth from his family worshiping him. You don't hear Robyn discussing her good old days, or Robyn discussing herself or the kids, even discussing themselves. The entire event that they were doing, or this entire filming situation, was just so inappropriate. When you think about a child is dead, and this is at a dinner on a trip for his burial, where nobody's discussing Garrison, I understand that people mourn at various points, and they have waves and life continues. I totally get it. We have in my family experienced loss. I have also in my family never once earned a single dollar from the death of anyone in my family. I've never shared my sorrow for fame or money for a show, and I've never exploited my sorrow or my lack of sorrow for a plot. And seeing Kody and Robyn attempt to shove aside tears for a child that they ignored, didn't care about, kicked out of the home, would not have in their home, had no connection with, and then seeing them attempt to rewrite history and pretend as if we've lost touch with how they treated him, how Garrison felt about them, the abuse he suffered due to them, and how Robyn was not accepted or desired at any of these services. For Garrison never would have wanted Robyn there ever. He had such eye for her detest, and for her to be like, oh, he's a passenger in my car. Oh, the graveside is gonna be so sad. Oh, we love him. We're putting him to rest. We're putting him to rest. And then Kody trying to squeeze out a tear while talking about his son and doing fun things because he, again, I feel like has to explain why all this, everything that we just saw, had absolutely nothing to do with Garrison until that moment he speaks. And then Sunday, we're going to attend the graveyard service, and I pray to God that they don't show the service where they lay him to rest. There are some things that don't need to be publicized, and that would be one of those things. And then for Kody to confess that a poster, which was at the Nevada National Guard's memorial, okay, that poster is in his garage, which proves again that Garrison is unwelcome in Kody's house with Robyn even in death. I know that Kody enjoys spending time in his garage, but why would you have a memorial poster of your son, which is from his service with the military, of him in his fatigues, with the military in your garage? You have a house which is full with bad art, really bad art, walls full to the top, with bad art, but you don't have room on the walls of your house for the photograph of your son who served the military and this nation. He's in your garage still, proving that Robyn does not want Garrison in her house, proving this is all a lie. If you love your child, put the photo in your house. There is not even a reason for that to be in your garage. That's an afterthought. And not to mention, garages aren't winterized. They reside in Flagstaff, which is cold. In time, that photo will be ruined because it's in a garage, period. And I also want to make a point to say that Kody lied in this episode, where he said that after his service, which was in Flagstaff, and then after the service in Nevada, which they never discussed. Thank God. So again, I'm happy that the message came across to TLC. We don't need this on television, right? He says, oh, I left his remains with his brothers. And a few months later, I went to go retrieve them. I left them as if they were his. I left his remains with his brothers. Kody never took custody of those remains, and he never left them with anyone. They were released to Janelle, and Janelle and her sons had custody of those until Kody seemingly picked them up. Although I don't know that he was actually in Kody's car. Or not, because obviously they didn't show an urn on the show. So, I don't know. But to reference the fact that he left them suggests that he did that, as if he had it to start with, which he didn't. And I know people had a hard time believing that he wasn't on the birth certificate. But when Janelle filed for bankruptcy in 1997, she did not list Kody as a father. She listed herself and only herself as a parent to 6 children with no spouse or no other parent that could claim these children. In order for her to list them that way, she's saying that he doesn't have claim over these kids. And interestingly, 7 years or 8 years later, Kody then claimed his kids on his bankruptcy with Mary, even though he's not on the birth certificate. So again, Kody's just a fraud all the way around. no matter what happens here, this was not about Garrison. This is again proving this was a storyline that Kody created about Kody being the grieving father on a journey of losing his son in his grief process. Thank the Lord the storyline of Robyn being the abused wife by the family was left on the cutting room floor. But Robyn's master trope on this and her talking heads was I need him to find, healthy ways of coping with his grief. Robyn only cared about how Kody's behavior will affect her, not whether or not she's mourning for Garrison or how it affects her. It was like, well, death can really transform people, and I hope he finds good ways to cope with this, because selfishly, she doesn't want to deal with Kody's grief because she despises Garrison. That's my interpretation. And why is his photo in the garage? Because Robyn loathed Garrison, Garrison loathed her. So it's all about them. It had nothing to do with Garrison. And this was shot in June or July. But the scene between Savannah and Janelle that I'll discuss later this week was filmed in April. So they weren't even filmed at the same time. And if they're on this pilgrimage and they're with the family, why is there no evidence of Kody interacting with his other children? Why isn't Kody there for his other kids on camera? Oh, that's right, because they want nothing to do with him because of how he treated Garrison. And that should tell you everything you need to know. Do you see any proof of them with the other kids? No, it's just gross. It's all a storyline. I feel bad for the rest of the family that's going through this. I do not feel bad for Kody Robyn, and I dislike that they're doing this to Garrison in death. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed, and tap the bell so you don't miss any videos. Thank you so much for watching.